Your stories don't define you. How you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief storymaker of Elkins Consulting. Many of my clients reach out to me because they're in transition. Their children are hitting milestone ages. They want more from their work. They're hitting a big number birthday. And they want to develop clarity about their natural strengths, what their next adventure might look like. In this series, you'll hear me ask my guests questions to dig deeply into the stories that shaped their lives, stories that uncover patterns and may unveil insights into dissatisfaction, and also where their strengths lie and where they found and continue to find joy. This podcast's intention is to have listeners think of their own related stories and how they tell them, discovering the internal messages that are limiting their success, and discovering how to shift their stories so they become positive life lessons to move them forward. If you're curious about what it would be like to work with me, visit elkinsconsulting.com and schedule a one-time 90-minute StrengthsFinder session. Well, I'm really feeling fortunate today because I happen to be at a retreat for the Women's Leadership Network here in Helena, Montana, with a group of women that are pretty extraordinary. They're eager and engaged with our community, and they want to just keep on building it and making it better. So I'm sitting here with Ashley, Danielle, and Marley, and I'm just going to ask them questions about what they think about leadership among women in particular. They're the good, the bad, and the ugly of it.
I like that. I like it so much.
So, Marley, when you think about one of your best leaders in your life, a boss or somebody who was a mentor to you, first of all, tell us a story about when they did something that is memorable, and then we can talk about what the qualities of that character were that made it valuable to you.
Oh, man. The person doesn't have to be a chick because I was mentored by multiple men, which has been actually one of my great pleasures to be seen as a woman, as an equal, even by someone who's from an older generation. That was very amazing for me, empowering. But anyways, I was mentored by from a young age through theater by my middle school and high school director. He just really took me under his wing almost like a daughter and transformed the trajectory of my life, right? And leading into, like, later, I always had, like, a mentor, you know what I mean? Male or female. And this one in particular was my last boss, and he and I engaged with his style of leadership. It was exactly what I thought was amazing. Anyways, my story is one day I was in this big panel. It was like I was actually being ordained, and it was an ordination panel, and it was a very intense moment, right? And so I'm giving, all these answers. It's a whole thing. He's in the corner of the room, and he's just laughing at my answers. And I was like, okay. And I have so much respect for them because I want to be him, right? And they look over and they said, "What are you laughing at, Isaac?" And he just goes, "She doesn't know what she's made of." And that was the perfect thing I could have done in that situation. It bolstered my confidence. It said, "You believe in me, someone that I think I want to be just like, and you said that about me."
Yeah.
There's something about that was a strong mentoring catalyst for me. And he and I entered into a formal mentor relationship up until just a couple years ago. So, and it's just been intense. He was one of the most impactful people in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So here we are thinking about this guy named Isaac, right? And what's one word you would use to describe Isaac? I'm asking Ashley.
Yeah. I mean, it's challenging, right? He's like challenging her
Yeah.
Be as great as she can be because he sees it, and challenging her to see it in herself.
So he's a challenger.
Yeah.
What's a word you would use to describe him? Real.
He's being very real about what he sees, not trying to sugarcoat, not trying to make you feel better than you should be. He's being very real and very raw to get you to be stronger, to get you to be better.
Yeah.
So that's Danielle speaking. Yep. And I think of somebody who has a sense of humor and understands how to present something to someone in the way that will be meaningful to them. My guess is that he would have done it differently for somebody else.
Yeah.
So here we are telling these stories about a guy named Isaac that 3 of us in the room have never met.
Mm.
Think about that for a second. His brand transcends beyond the people that he has direct impact on. So we're talking about a guy that we've never met. We're telling you how amazing he is.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
my arms are straight up. My hair's on my arms.
It makes
My
you
arms
wonder,
are also
like
straight up.
in terms of what are the stories that people are telling about us that transcend. So Danielle, what do you think? Do you have a mentor in your head that you can share a story? Or Ashley, while Danielle thinks about it?
Well, I mean, I have a handful of mentors. Like, I love being led and following and informing and asking questions. Like, I'm constantly attaching to people who can offer like insight, perspective. But I find it, of recent, I've found it like neat to have that come organically from somebody you don't deem or know will provide that. Right?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It, I always say, like, trust the smile of a stranger, like, fall in love with a shadow cast, that you don't expect. And there's a woman at work, her name is Anne, and she just, like...
Cancun! Sorry, edit that out.
It's a small town.
I love
She's an amazing woman.
incredible.
Okay, let's hear Ashley's story.
No, she just... she lives with her heart.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like, does what is good and what is right. And she has, like, mentored me. We have mentored each other almost, like, through grace and patience. And so that's been a greater teacher in, like, an informal way than
as a model.
Yeah.
More of a role model than a mentor necessarily.
But also...
sharing.
Like,
right.
she doesn't have to directly, and I don't have to directly engage about something specific to be mentored. It's like through action, right? Like, everybody says the cliche, like, actions speak louder than words. Like, it's really tough for me to say I love you, but I'm really good at showing you that I love you.
Well, so this is value for you, is the showing, not the telling.
Yeah, it's one of my love languages, acts of service, right? So this mentorship of doing it without intentional word, but like through action, has been a new way for me to be mentored. And yeah,
I love that.
That perfectly describes her. She will come alongside you and never ever talk about exactly what you needed, but at the same time, you learn to listen.
Yeah.
Just because she just, in proximity, you just get that energy and you get that love, and she's a master at that.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? So now we've talked about 2 different people and 2 very different ways of having impact and influence. Danielle, did you think of somebody? No, she's still thinking. Well, I had a boss that I was disappointed that he didn't advocate for me at a time when I needed to be advocated for. And yet, he's the reason I was able to explore my ability as a facilitator. And I didn't know I had that in me until he gave me the space to explore that. And when we would go into a room where we were going to facilitate, he would give me free rein to facilitate these meetings. And I remember thinking, why is he letting me do this? I have no credentials, no experience in this. And yet, after a year of facilitating dozens of meetings, I knew that it was something that I was really good at. And it was something I had never really done or practiced. And he gave me that space to do it, supported me in that way. So I think of this, and his name is Bill Mcgregor. I am happy to share that name. He worked at Montana Tech for years and then took a sabbatical to work on the transfer initiative at the university system here in Montana. And I was on his team. And he was a magical diplomat. He would get everyone to the table that needed to be there. And I told Marley this story the other night. He would get all the right people to the table, and then I would facilitate the discussion to make sure that we got something done. And the teamwork that we had was really extraordinary. You just don't see that often. And so when I think of a mentor, That's what I think of as somebody who sees something in you and then gives you the space and the confidence to explore it.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
One of my mentors did that exact thing. He was, and I was just brand new to the theater world. I was just just a kid. I was just like 13, 14 years old, whatever that was. And he just throws a script at me and goes, "You're putting that show on this date." And I was like, okay. And so I had to find a producer. I had to decide if I was the director or if I facilitated a director. And I was the producer. I had to cast it. I had to do marketing. I had to do the whole thing. And he just said, do it. And he never told me how. I just watched him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was like sink or swim. And he saw that I could do that. Mm-hmm. And I was 14 years old. And I did. And we put it on in front of 250 people. And it was just like, okay.
That's awesome.
That's the kind of mentor that just says, off the
yeah, Marley's kicking into the air.
Somehow stays close in case I fall.
Yeah. Well, that's the key, I think. And I think in a case where you're working with somebody that doesn't have that adaptability talent, being able to say, I believe in you, here are the steps that I expect you to take, and then let you run with it would be more individual guidance. Knowing the person. I think that's the key to that story, is that he wouldn't have done that with somebody who wouldn't have run with it. Yeah, that it would have been intimidated by it.
He would have guided them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about like what it's like to be the mentor, right? Like identifying, like people have identified and chosen us is what we're talking about, but like how do we learn? It's intuitive. It's specific, right? Of like finding those people and like being that mentor.
I think it organically happens.
Yeah.
Though all the times that people have called me their mentor, and that sounds really terrible. They're all teenage girls. Let's face the facts here. But
teenage girls really need mentors. healthy relationship mentors.
Yeah, I mean, so
I know
being
I did.
specifically called a mentor by multiple kids, it's probably the best moniker in my life. Like it's my most.
That's a label you trust and
it's one that
honor. You want to identify with that.
Worth.
Yeah, you honor it.
You know, and it gives me such self-worth. Like this is why I exist. It's for these kids. You know what I mean? Anyways, tangent, but it just kind of happens unless it's a paid situation or unless it's a sort of a structured situation
like for
where
companies.
You call somebody, you say, oh, I need a mentor in this department, whatever. But the times where a girl or woman looks at you and says, you're my mentor, and you just step back and you think, well, I'm your mentor. And then you
so cool.
Gives you validation.
Yeah. But responsibility. It's very heavy, but it's thrilling.
Yeah. So I think one of...
This is Danielle speaking.
Oddly enough, it's a crazy story. So I'd been in leadership training for years. High school, since I was like 10 years old. Went through all the leadership training in 4-H and FFA and did all that stuff. And then you go and you do all the leadership training in college. You serve on the civic communities or the civic committees. And then you're like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then your job doesn't align. It's frustrating. Frustrating. Right. So it's like, okay, you just go along. And then finally, oddly enough, just recently, I was blessed with a position here probably about a month and a half ago in which somebody recognized those leadership abilities. And crazy enough, we sit here and we talk about mentoring. And actually the woman that put me in this position blessed me with this position as somebody that I had actually looked up to for a while and didn't really realize it until now we're just sitting here talking. So it's so funny to sit here and kind of come full circle with this and have a light come on. It's like, and then you start thinking about all the times in which she had impact in my life when I met her and all of those instances in which we had interacted. It's like, okay. Yep. So unconsciously knowing that maybe this person was set in my path on purpose as a silent mentor, if you will, to put me into a position that I'm in now, a supervisory position, which I have 4 people underneath me, just going to be hiring a 4th one this week. And I'm so excited. And I feel so much gratitude and so much fulfillment with this position that I've never felt ever. And I'm so excited. And I'm so engaged with this.
You can say her name. Go ahead.
Well, it's Mary Palkovich.
Yeah.
It's her very own. So.
And Mary is
Love
part
her.
of the Women's Leadership Network. She is actually here for the retreat. She's not in this room right now.
No.
But Mary has been a great guide for me as well. And I actually wrote a letter for the Salute to Women event, and I nominated her to win one of those awards a few years ago. And then I finally sent her the letter because she didn't know. It was like 2 years later I told her I had nominated her for that, a Woman of the Year award. And Mary Palkovich, the magic that Mary Palkovich brings is this belief in people that she shares without telling you, I believe in you. She just,
It's the show not tell.
it's kind of like, the show not tell. And when I had left my other job and was trying to decide, what my business was really going to look like, and she said, well, you're thinking about doing the StrengthsFinder certification? I said, yeah, that's definitely, top on my list. She said, well, if you do that, I'll hire you because my company really needs somebody to come in and coach. We've never had a certified coach come and talk to us about this product. And that one contract paid for my training.
Wow.
So that's big influence right there.
So
that's path changer influence.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody that sees your talents more than you see them in yourself,
Yes.
Oh, and that's essential.
and then helps catalysts you into a position in which you can use 20 years of leadership training, finally, it was very surreal, very humbling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just didn't ever think that I could be in that position, because you don't think about yourself that way. I could never be that way.
I do.
I could never be that way.
Yeah.
That's for someone else who has more experience. And she's like, oh, but you have all the experience in the world.
Right.
Look
It's not
at
about
everything you've
having experience,
done.
about knowing
Right.
what you
And it's
have.
like, yeah. So it was very, I don't take it for granted.
Well, that opportunity to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that same person we're talking about, Mary, said something very affirming to me tonight that meant really proved to me that I made the right choices, right? And trusting the process, to keep doing and keep trucking and believing in yourself, even if you don't know where it's going to go. That journey, it's worthwhile.
So when people speak life into you, and then she probably doesn't even remember. She's probably like,
She doesn't remember these things. She doesn't remember these things. I promise. I've known her a long time.
It makes you hope that people cling on to stuff you say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff
So
you don't even know.
I guess that's where we can kind of wrap this all together and come back to, full circle. The characteristics of a leader, a mentor, somebody who inspires us to want to be that person for somebody else.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
what is it? What's 2 words to describe Mary's character in this scenario that you would emulate?
I think authentic, integrity, truth, there's a wisdom, she's just able to just tap in real quick, just put her finger in and know
Does she have maximizer?
intuitively.
I can't remember.
I don't think she does.
Individualization, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's what she.
I think when you come to that, where she has the
And
ability
will.
to put the finger on something, it's she has the ability to put the finger and watch the ripple effect.
Mm.
And she knows what an individual needs to hear to be able to move forward.
Yes.
Yeah. So we all can't be that. And not everyone
there's different
needs
reasons
that.
people.
But I think about your mentor. He knew what you needed in that moment was humor.
To jar me from the stress of what was going on, but that's how he communicates.
And to make you
very direct.
take yourself less seriously. I think that's a mistake many of us make, is that we start taking ourselves too seriously, and that's what's stressing us out. If we can walk in and be like, I am just going to be who I am and not worry as much, I think
I think that's what gives you permission to do.
Yeah.
Lean into your style, to what you've got going on, because I think part of the reason he laughed, honestly, was that he looked around the room and he saw nobody else like my leadership style, which is his leadership style.
Mm-hmm.
And he went, here she's being interviewed by a bunch of people who are the opposite leadership style, and he just started laughing like no one understands him here. And so he just like bypassed this 15-panel person and says, follow me. You know what I mean? And it was really great.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. One thing that you would like to bring, that you could see yourself having that kind of influence into the future. What do you bring individually to that? And these are all going to be different words or different
like as a
phrases.
mentor, what you want someone to describe you as, essentially.
So I think of what I love about what I do, and I'm fortunate that it's my full-time job to be doing this, is I love telling people what their magic is and helping them grow into it.
Yeah, maximizer. I always call it, I want to build a platform for someone else to stand on. And that's mentoring. And where you give them a megaphone, you build a platform, you put them on there, and you walk away and point at them and say, look how great they are.
I think
that's what I want.
I think it's building people up so they can stand and be the shining star and get the attention and get the spotlight. Build them up so they have that confidence to be in that spotlight and to shine.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because like we're all saying the same thing in different ways, right? It's like I really enjoy and have enjoyed being challenged, and that's made me think. So then as I think more, I'm able to like identify about where I am, who I am, and what I can do. So like challenging other people to do that gives them the platform to be in the spotlight, you know, like
because if you're coddling them, they'll never grow enough to be in the spotlight and be comfortable in it.
Right. Because innovation comes out of necessity
and struggle.
Yeah, and that's I think what I appreciated about the way that my mentors have approached me, and it's that very much. I know that you can do this. Let's see if you know. Boom. You know what I mean? And that's when I'm thrust into a situation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that was what I appreciated. I liked that confidence that they gave me because they had it in me, and I trusted them.
Well, and that happened with Danielle when Mary said, you would be great in this role. And you're like, oh, no, I couldn't do that. And she said, I need you to apply for this role. Please apply for this role.
And you were sitting there with me.
I was.
The whole meeting, I was so dialed in on those words and really trying to figure out, can I do this? Mm-hmm. Can I?
That's why I started taking notes. Because I could tell Danielle was supposed to be taking the notes, but I'm like, we just lost Danielle. I don't know where she just went.
Mary.
I think we should all go hug Mary and tell her how wonderful she is.
Yeah.
Not that she doesn't know.
Yeah.
She knows.
Never heard so.
Ladies, one of the things we talked about earlier this evening was the Madeleine Albright quote, which is, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. And this is the kind of group that I know that we support each other no matter what. And I think it's really important to recognize that there are some women and people in general that we don't like, and that doesn't mean we can't support them in some way. And by supporting them, that may be checking out, walking away from them, rather than engaging in a way that could be negative later on. So this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for filling in the blanks for me.
As they would be
thanks for having us.
Have gathered with somebody.
Yeah.
So this is Marley, Danielle, and Ashley, and I'm going to take a selfie of the four of us in a minute, and we will include this in the podcast notes. Thank you so much. Are you ready to start your story portfolio so you have the right story ready to share when the opportunity presents itself? When you're ready to get started, my book, Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will, is available in all the regular places, and the audiobook version is available on Google Play and on my website, elkinsconsulting.com. As a special bonus for listeners, the audiobook includes 2 songs recorded by my band, Spare Change, in my living room in Montana. Also on my website is a free podcast interview checklist It's available to download to make sure you make the most out of your next podcast interview. If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to rate the podcast and leave a review. And let me know that you've done it so I can thank you properly. Thank you.
Now listen to me, honey, while I say, how could you tell me that you're going away?